I was 22 when my stepmother Martha took everything from me. My childhood home, my father's affection, and then the $265,000 inheritance my mother had set aside for my education and future. What she didn't know was that her perfect crime had one fatal flaw. And when I found that dusty shoebox in the back of her closet 6 years later, I finally understood why she'd spent years turning my father against me. Her face when I placed those documents on the dining room table was priceless. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, to a small house in Columbus, Ohio, where my life first fell apart, and then, surprisingly, came back together in ways I never could have imagined. My mom died of breast cancer when I was 12. The pain was excruciating, but Dad and I clung to each other, forming a team of two against the world. For 3 years, it was just us. Movie nights with Oreo milkshakes from Wendy's, camping trips to Hocking Hills, and quiet evenings where he'd help me with homework at the solid oak table in our kitchen. Then Martha entered our lives. Dad met her at a conference in Cleveland. She was pretty, charming, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. At first, I was cautiously optimistic. Maybe this was going to be a good thing for Dad. After all, he deserved happiness after everything we'd been through. But something felt off from the very beginning. "Your father talks about you constantly," Martha said during our first meeting at North Star Cafe, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I feel like I already know you, Allison." The way she studied me, like I was an obstacle rather than a person, sent chills down my spine. But Dad was smiling for the first time in years, so I pushed my concerns aside. Within 6 months, they were married. Within a year, our home became unrecognizable. The first changes were subtle. My childhood photos gradually disappeared from the walls, replaced by Martha's artistic black and white prints. My mom's cherished recipe books vanished from the kitchen shelves, with Martha claiming they were cluttering the space. "Dad, have you seen Mom's cookbooks?" I asked one evening while doing homework at the kitchen counter. "Martha organized them somewhere," he mumbled, not looking up from his laptop. "Ask her when she gets home." But when I asked Martha, her answer was always vague. "I put them somewhere safe, honey. I'll look for them this weekend." That weekend never came. By the time I turned 17, Martha had completely taken over. My father, once my best friend and greatest ally, had become distant, frequently taking Martha's side in even the smallest disagreements. The warmth that had once filled our home was replaced by tension and Martha's constant criticism of my every move. "College applications already? Don't you think you're aiming a bit high with Northwestern, Allison?" Martha commented one evening, glancing at my applications spread across the dining table. "State schools are more realistic for your grades. We need to be practical about money." I felt my face burn. "Mom left money specifically for my education," I said quietly, "and my GPA is 3.9. Martha's expression hardened for a split second before smoothing into concerned sympathy. "Oh, sweetie, your father and I think it's time you heard the truth about that." The truth, according to Martha, was that my mother's inheritance for me was much smaller than I'd been led to believe. Medical bills had apparently eaten away most of it, and what remained needed to be responsibly managed. "We're just looking out for your future," Martha explained while Dad nodded beside her. "The money needs to be carefully invested, not spent all at once on an expensive university." Something in her tone made my stomach twist, but when I looked at Dad for confirmation, he just shrugged. "Martha knows finances better than I do, Pumpkin. She's just trying to help." I swallowed hard and nodded, but that night I couldn't sleep. Mom had worked at Nationwide Insurance for 15 years. She had good health insurance and had been very clear about the money she was leaving me. Something wasn't adding up. The next day, I called my mom's sister, Aunt Carrie, who lived in Cincinnati. "That doesn't sound right, Allison," she said after I explained the situation. "Your mom had a substantial life insurance policy, plus her 401k was specifically designated for you. It should be at least $250,000, probably more with interest by now." My heart pounded as Aunt Carrie continued. "She also set up a trust that you should be able to access at 21. I have copies of some of the paperwork somewhere. Let me look through my files and call you back." But Aunt Carrie never called back. When I tried reaching her the next day and the day after, my calls went straight to voicemail. When she finally did call a week later, her tone had completely changed. "I was mistaken, Allison," she said stiffly. "I checked my records, and the situation is complicated. Your father and Martha are handling things appropriately. I think it's best if you trust them on this." The abrupt about-face was jarring. It sounded like someone had coached her on what to say. When I tried to press for more information, Aunt Carrie quickly made an excuse to hang up. 2 days later, Dad and Martha sat me down for another talk. "We're concerned about your attitude lately," Martha began, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Your father and I feel you're becoming obsessed with money in an unhealthy way." Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. "Calling relatives behind our backs? It's disrespectful, Allison. We're your parents. We know what's best." "But Mom wanted—" "Your mother would want you to trust us," Martha interrupted, "and frankly, it hurts that you don't." By graduation, I had given up arguing. I accepted a scholarship to Ohio State instead of my dream school, moved into a cramped dorm in Columbus, and tried to focus on building my own life. Martha had won, at least for now. But the final blow came on my 21st birthday, the day I should have gained access to my trust. I called my father, expecting at least a conversation about the money that was legally mine. "Happy birthday, sweetie," he said when he picked up. "Martha's made your favorite cake. When can we expect you?" "Dad, I wanted to talk about Mom's trust," I said carefully. "Today's the day I'm supposed to access it." There was a long pause, then a heavy sigh. "Allie, that money is gone." The ringing in my ears was so loud I could barely hear my father's explanation. Something about family financial difficulties and investments that didn't pan out. "We had to consolidate our resources," he explained weakly. "Martha helped manage everything. The house needed a new roof, and then there were the medical bills from my back surgery." "My entire inheritance?" I whispered. "All of it?" "You're young, Allie," he said, his voice taking on that dismissive tone Martha had perfected. "You have your whole life to build your savings. We're older. We needed it more." I hung up without saying goodbye. Then I sat on my dorm room floor and sobbed until my roommate came back and found me there, still clutching my phone. I didn't go home for my birthday cake, or for Thanksgiving, or Christmas. When Dad called, I kept conversations brief and made excuses to hang up. Martha sent manipulative texts about how I was breaking your father's heart and tearing this family apart over money. I blocked her number. After graduation, I took a job at a marketing firm in Cincinnati, deliberately keeping my distance from Columbus and the remains of my fractured family. When I did occasionally visit Dad, Martha would make subtle digs about my expensive haircut or fancy car, implying I was wasteful with money, the money she had stolen from me. For 6 years, I built my own life. I made friends, advanced in my career, dated, though never seriously, and tried to move past the betrayal. But the sense of injustice never faded. Then, last month, everything changed. Dad called on a Tuesday evening. "Martha's mother died," he said without preamble. "We need to clean out her house in Dayton before putting it on the market. Could you come help this weekend? Martha's pretty torn up." My first instinct was to refuse. Why should I help Martha with anything? But something, curiosity perhaps, or a lingering desire to reconnect with my father, made me agree. "Just for Saturday," I said firmly. "I have plans on Sunday." That Saturday, I drove to Dayton with a thermos of Starbucks coffee and a car full of packing supplies from Target. When I arrived at the small ranch-style house, Martha's car was nowhere in sight. "She's at the funeral home making arrangements," Dad explained as he let me in. "She'll be back in a few hours." I thought we could start with the bedroom closets. For the next 2 hours, we worked in relative silence, boxing up old clothes and shoes. It was the most time we'd spent alone together in years, and the awkwardness was palpable. "Your job going well?" he asked at one point. "Got promoted last month," I replied, not looking up from the shoebox of old photographs I was sorting. "That's great," he said, and for a moment, he sounded like the dad I remembered. "You always were the smart one." I didn't respond, but something in his tone made me glance over. He looked older than his 58 years, with deep lines around his eyes that spoke of worry, not laughter. "Dad, are you okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. He hesitated, then sighed. "It's been a tough few years, Allie. The financial stuff, it's been stressful. Martha tries, but... Before he could finish, his phone rang. It was Martha, asking him to come help her at the funeral home. "I'll be right there," he promised, then turned to me. "Will you be okay finishing up here?" "Just the main bedroom left. We can tackle the basement another day." I nodded, almost relieved to have some space. After Dad left, I moved to Martha's mother's bedroom and began emptying the closet. That's when I found it. A dusty shoebox pushed far back on the top shelf. Unlike the others filled with photos or mementos, this one was sealed with packing tape. Curiosity got the better of me. I carefully cut the tape and removed the lid. Inside were documents, lots of them, and on top was a folder labeled Allison Elizabeth Morgan Trust Fund. My hands shook as I opened it. The documents told the whole sordid story: bank statements, transfer records, emails printed out and carefully preserved. Everything Martha needed to orchestrate her theft, and everything I needed to prove it. My mother had left me not $250,000 but $265,782 in a combination of life insurance, investments, and savings. Martha had systematically drained the accounts over a 2-year period, transferring funds into offshore accounts and making investments in shell companies she controlled. There were even email exchanges between Martha and Aunt Carrie, threatening to sue her for interfering in family matters if she didn't stay quiet about what she knew. But what made my blood run coldest was a printed draft of a letter to a lawyer, in which Martha detailed her plan to legally adopt Allison after manipulating my father into cutting me off completely, which would give her final control over any remaining assets in trust or future inheritance. This wasn't just opportunistic theft. This was calculated, long-term manipulation designed to separate me from both my family and my financial security. As I sat on the carpet surrounded by evidence of Martha's betrayal, a strange calm came over me. For 6 years I doubted myself, wondered if I was overreacting or being materialistic. Now I had proof that my instincts had been right all along. I carefully repacked everything into the box, carried it to my car, and drove straight to a copy shop. I made 3 complete sets of copies, one for me, one for my father, and one for the lawyer I was about to hire. Then I waited. The next family dinner was scheduled for the following Friday, a small gathering to take Martha's mind off her loss, according to my father's text invitation. I accepted immediately. For the first time in years, I arrived early, armed with a folder of documents and a plan. "Allison, what a lovely surprise to see you here so early," Martha exclaimed when she opened the door. Her smile faltered when she saw my expression. "Is everything all right? Where's Dad?" I asked, stepping inside without returning her greeting. "In the kitchen, but..." I walked past her, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. Dad was at the stove, stirring a pot of his famous chili. "Allie, you're early," he smiled, looking genuinely pleased to see me. "Want to taste? I added extra cumin this time." "Dad, we need to talk," I said quietly. "All of us, right now." Something in my tone made him put down the wooden spoon. "What's wrong?" Martha appeared in the doorway, her expression wary. "Whatever it is, I'm sure it can wait until after dinner, Allison. Your father's been cooking all afternoon." "It's waited 6 years," I replied evenly. "It's not about waiting any longer." I placed the folder on the kitchen table. "I found this at your mother's house last Saturday. I'd like you both to look at it." Martha's face drained of color. "What is this? Have you been snooping through my mother's personal belongings?" "Just open it," I said. Dad looked confused but pulled the folder toward him and flipped it open. Martha remained frozen in the doorway. "What am I looking at?" Dad asked, scanning the first page. "Bank statements," I explained. "From my trust fund, the one Mom set up for me before she died. The one Martha told you was mostly gone because of medical bills." Dad's brow furrowed as he flipped through the pages. "I don't understand. These show regular transfers to accounts Martha controls," I finished for him. "Keep going. There are emails, too, and a very interesting letter to her lawyer about adopting me after you cut me off." Martha lunged forward. "This is ridiculous. These are obviously fake. Allison is trying to create drama because she's jealous of our relationship." But Dad was already reading the email exchanges, his face growing paler with each page. "Is this true?" he finally asked, looking up at Martha. "Did you steal Allie's money?" "Of course not," Martha scoffed. but her voice had risen an octave. Robert, you know how unstable Allison has always been. This is clearly some kind of fabricated. It's from your mother's house, I cut in. Your handwriting is on half these documents. Your signature is on the transfer forms, and I've already verified the account numbers with the bank. Dad stood up slowly, the folder clutched in his trembling hand. All these years? You told me the money was mostly gone. You said we needed it for the house, for my surgery. We did, Martha insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. Everything I did was for us, for our future. Allison was young. She would recover. We needed security. You needed Alexis, I said coldly, and that vacation home in Hilton Head, and those diamond earrings you're wearing right now. Martha's hand flew to her ear as if the diamonds had suddenly burned her. Get out, Dad whispered. Martha blinked. What? Get out of my house, Dad repeated, his voice stronger now. Pack whatever you need for tonight and go to a hotel. I can't even look at you right now. Robert, you can't be serious. After everything we've built together, you'd throw it all away because your daughter is making wild accusations. Dad held up the folder. These aren't accusations, Martha. They're facts. You stole from my daughter. You lied to me for years. You manipulated me into believing Allie was money-hungry when it was you all along. Martha's face hardened, the mask of concerned stepmother finally dropping away completely. Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I took the money. And I'd do it again. Why should she get everything while we struggled? Do you know how hard it's been, living in the shadow of your precious first wife, hearing about how perfect Allison's mother was? So this was revenge? I asked incredulously. Against my dead mother? Martha laughed bitterly. This was survival. And don't act so innocent, Allison. You never wanted me here. You fought me at every turn. I was 12 when you married Dad, I said quietly. I was grieving my mother. All I wanted was for Dad to be happy. You're the one who turned this into a competition. Martha grabbed her purse from the counter. This isn't over. That money is long gone and you'll never prove. I already have, I interrupted. My lawyer has all the documentation. So does the bank's fraud department and the police. Martha froze. You're bluffing. Try me, I challenged, meeting her gaze steadily. For a moment, we stared at each other, years of resentment and manipulation hanging in the air between us. Then Martha turned and stormed out, slamming the front door behind her. Dad and I stood in silence for a long moment. I'm so sorry, Allie, he finally whispered, his voice breaking. I had no idea. I should have trusted you. I should have protected you. I wanted to be angry with him. Part of me still was, but seeing him standing there, shoulders slumped, clutching evidence of his wife's betrayal, I could only feel pity. It's not entirely your fault, I said at last. She manipulated both of us. The resolution. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, bank appointments, and difficult conversations. Martha had indeed spent much of my inheritance, but not all of it. Through careful tracing of assets and accounts, my lawyer was able to recover about $140,000, a little more than half of what I was owed. Martha faced criminal charges for fraud and theft. Rather than risk a trial, she agreed to a plea deal that included paying restitution, serving 6 months in jail, and 5 years of probation. The house in Hilton Head was sold, as was the Lexus, and most of her jewelry collection. Dad filed for divorce immediately, though the process would take time given the financial complications. He offered to sell our family home to help make up the rest of what I was owed, but I refused. That's not why I did this, I told him over coffee at Panera Bread one afternoon. I wanted the truth. I wanted her manipulation exposed. The money was never the most important part. My dad reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I failed you, Allie. I let her come between us. I don't know if you can ever forgive me for that. I'm working on it, I answered honestly. It'll take time. And it has. Dad and I are rebuilding our relationship slowly. We meet for lunch every Sunday now. Sometimes we talk about what happened. Sometimes we don't. Last week, he surprised me by bringing a box he'd found in the basement, my mother's recipe books, which Martha had hidden away years ago. I thought these were gone forever, I whispered, running my fingers over my mom's handwritten notes in the margins. Me too, Dad said softly. There's a lot I thought was gone forever. As for the recovered money, I've put most of it toward a down payment on a small house in a neighborhood I love. The rest is going into savings for the future, a future that feels more secure and hopeful than it has in years. Martha's betrayal taught me painful lessons about trust and vigilance, but finding those documents and standing up for myself taught me something far more valuable. That sometimes the most important inheritance isn't money at all, but the strength to fight for what's right, even when it seems impossible. That's something no one can ever take from me again. Hope you enjoyed this tale. What did you think about it, and would you have acted the same way? Or have you ever had major family issues over money, betrayal, or other events? Drop your stories in the comments. Let's talk about it, and more importantly, let's learn from it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more real-life stories you won't forget in a hurry.